So early Saturday morning, an officer got behind a stolen car at Lakewood and Briggsmore, and he tried to pull it over. The car took off pretty much immediately, and within 2 minutes of him getting behind the car and starting to initiate or try to stop the car, the passengers in the car began shooting at him. He put out on the radio that he was being shot at. Our officers continued to chase the car. It went out of the city. Into a county area, into the city of Empire, and then came back into the city. And then as they were coming back into the city, the vehicle was driving at a very high rate of speed. Officers had backed off quite a bit. And at that point, we had a helicopter overhead that was watching the suspect vehicle and letting the officers know where he was. Suspect vehicle didn't make the turn at Yosemite. There's an intersection, 14th D in Yosemite, didn't make the turn. And ended up crashing into a picnic area where a popular taco truck is at, and ended up killing 2 innocent victims of our community. Part of that's still being investigated, as far as we have traffic accident folks that do investigations into that, but it does appear that he was driving too fast and did not make the turn, yes.
At any point, did your officers throw out some kind of spike strips or something to stop the tires from moving forward?
The Modesto Police Department did not, but yes, an allied agency did use spike strips, and I don't know if they were effective or not. Again, that's part of the investigation into, we take the car and look at the car and do a complete examination of it. So that will be part of the investigation as to whether the spike strips were effective or not effective. Sometimes you get a spike strip out there and it may or may not work. It initially came back as a stolen vehicle. And so officers were trying to stop it as a stolen vehicle. And then once they started shooting at officers, it completely changed it from just being a stolen car to attempted homicide on our officers.
How many different occasions, or maybe how many shots, were fired upon your officers?
There were at least 2 occasions that I'm aware of at this early stage of the investigation where they fired back at our officers. No officers were hurt. Again, our hearts go out to the families of the innocent victims that were hurt in this, but no officers were injured.
At any point, did any officer return fire?
No, they did not.
Why is that?
Shooting at a moving vehicle from a moving vehicle is not very effective, and you end up putting more people in danger than you actually do being effective at hitting the suspects that are shooting at you. So it could happen, but it'd be very rare that that's going to be effective. Well, anytime there's a tragedy, we're going to look at all aspects of it. What we could have done differently, things that could have been done differently. In this particular case, we did not have control over the suspects. They were making their own decisions. They came into our town. They tried to shoot one of our officers. They were choosing the speed at which they were going. We got a helicopter overhead so that we could back off and follow it with a helicopter. So at that point, we don't have a whole lot of control over what the suspects are going to do and not going to do. We were going to chase this car. Again, it was an attempted murder on a police officer. We're not going to let those suspects go because we don't know if they had just done a murder. We don't know if they were going to do a murder or what they were up to. But obviously, if you're going to shoot at an officer to try to get away, you've done something pretty bad, or we're getting ready to do something pretty bad. So let me just be clear. As far as spike strips go, spike strips are intended to slow a pursuit down. They're intended to slow cars down. They're not intended to make them crash. The spikes actually deflate the tires very slowly. And so the fact that a spike strip was used is not surprising, and it's not something that would be out of policy. It actually is something that we'd want to do, but you have to be able to get up in front of the vehicle to do that. There's an additional risk of using a spike strip when someone's shown that they'll already shoot at the officer. So for me, very concerning getting an officer on the road to deploy a spike strip. So again, I feel really bad for the family, very, very bad for the family. I don't believe that spike strips caused the accident. I believe it's the suspect's actions and the way that they were driving that caused this accident. The pursuit policy calls for the officers to make split-second decisions, but to constantly reevaluate those decisions based on the risk to the public, based on the risk to the officer, based on a whole bunch of circumstances. Would we chase a stolen car at 2 o'clock in the afternoon? It depends on the traffic and things like that. 2 o'clock in the morning, you're probably going to have a little bit more leeway. But once you start shooting at officers, we're not going to let that car go. And so we're trying to engage in a pursuit as safely as we possibly can, which is, again, why the helicopter was there, why our officers had backed off quite a bit. So it's a dangerous, very, very dangerous thing, pursuits. I think our pursuit policy covers it very well as far as constantly reevaluating. Again, this was a suspects that were shooting at officers and had no regard for public safety at all. Going back to the families of the 2 innocent men that were killed, our hearts go out to them. This is a tragedy. We feel very, very bad about their loss.